Hey everyone, it's Charlene. Today we're going to take a look at the November 2021 Scrapbook and Cards Today sampler, and we're going to make 3 cards with the included supplies. If you're not familiar with the sampler, it is a subscription service that you can receive, and they send new samples of products so that you can take a look at things and see what you like. Always comes with that cute little card as well as an acrylic word. And the first thing we have is the Autumn Afternoon Gems from Honeybee Stamps. And then here we have several pieces of ephemera as well as some chipboard flair from the Best Days collection from Pinkfresh Studio. We also have some enamel dots, some cardstock stickers, and some patterned paper from the Best Days collection as well. If you're interested in knowing the names of the papers, you can head over to my blog at dreamcraftcreate.com and I will list them there as well. In addition to those pattern papers from Pinkfresh Studio, we also have some Autumn Afternoon papers here from Honeybee Stamps. These are all really pretty double-sided papers, and you can get lots of mileage out of these for your fall cards. Also included is the Hero Arts Falling Leaves stencil. So we're going to use some of these supplies. We're going to make 3 cards. I'm going to share lots of tips and tricks along the way. So even if you don't have this sampler, you can follow along. Let's get started. For 2 of today's cards, I'm going to be starting with sketches as inspiration from scrapbookandcards.com. That's a great place to look if you ever need inspiration. So I'm cutting down this really pretty leaf pattern piece, and I'm cutting it down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2 using the Simon Says Stamp stitched rectangle dies. And then I'm cutting down a striped piece of paper to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, a white piece of plain cardstock to 3 1/2 by 4 3/4, and then a strip down to 1 1/2 by 5 1/2. And this comes from the inspiration from the sketch, how I want to lay everything out. Once I have that, I decided I'm going to use some twine. And I recommend using a thinner grade of twine. It was really hard to get this twine onto the cardstock and get it to stay because of how thick and unwieldy it was. But what I did is I glued it down with some Gina K Connect glue, and then I also put some tape there to hold the twine in place while the glue dried. It ultimately worked, but it was a little more of a pain than I was hoping for. So set that off to the side, let that dry underneath an acrylic block, and I'm just going to start mounting all of my panels. So here I am taking that leaf pattern paper and I'm going to put it on top of the white cardstock. And then I'm going to take that white cardstock and I'm going to put it onto the striped pattern paper. I do actually go ahead and cut down that piece of striped pattern paper just a little bit because I want it to have even light pink stripes on the side. I also cut down my card base just a little bit. You can't even tell. I suppose if you measured, you would know it's not a true A2 card, but it really was only about 1/8 of an inch that I cut down. So now I'm going to put everything onto that striped piece of pattern paper, and then I can attach my piece of white cardstock with the twine. I'm using foam squares to pop up that center piece, and I have 2 tips for you. One, if you struggle with getting the backing off of your adhesive foam squares, use a weeding tool or some other type of tool. You can use a craft knife, that works as well, and just kind of push the paper and then you can peel the paper off. Additionally, these foam squares, once they stick, they stick. So I picked up a tip from Kathy Zielski, which is where you put a little bit of glue on the adhesive square, and that gives you just enough time to sort of wiggle your piece around. It is a great tip. I use it all the time. So now I'm going to place my chipboard sticker as well as my little piece of ephemera that I've picked out. And I did use 2 small foam squares to pop up that chipboard sticker before I glued in my piece of ephemera there. Now I'm coming in with some of those beautiful rhinestones, putting those just randomly on the different leaves to add a little bit of bling. I love adding a little bit of bling to my cards. If that's not your thing, you can use enamel dots for that, whatever you have. You could also use like glossy accents or something along those lines. Decided to add a little bow here because I think that adds a lot to the card. I'm just going to glue that down with some more of the Connect glue. I love the Connect glue because it is very thin, so you can use it on card panels and it doesn't show underneath. But once it dries, it adheres really well. So I use it a lot. All right, let's move into the second card. I think this is my favorite card. So for this one, I'm going to use the plaid piece of patterned paper, and I'm going to cut that down to 4 by 5 1/4. And then later you're going to see I use a piece of black matting, and that is cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So I'm going to take this piece of plaid paper. I'm going to use a little bit of washi tape because I'm trying to use up my washi tape to secure it to my work surface. Just be careful, you'll see later I do actually rip the back of my piece of plaid paper because this washi tape has a little bit too much tack to it. But then you're going to take your stencil, you're going to tape it down over your piece of paper, and now I'm going to use some Glitz Glitter Gel. Here's another tip for you. Use some saran wrap or press and seal or something like that and put it over your glitter gel before you put the lid on it. That's going to make it last a lot longer because it seals it from the air getting to it. So you're just going to take your spatula, this is one from Ranger, and you're going to make sure to get the glitter gel down into all of the spots of the stencil. Once you're done, you want to go back over and smooth it all out so you get a nice smooth texture once it dries. You have to move a little quickly because once this stuff dries, it does adhere to whatever it's on. So carefully peel your stencil up. You can keep a dish with warm soapy water and put your stencil in it. Or what I did is I just ran to the sink and I washed it off really quick with soap and water. And then I came right back and I'm going to slowly peel up my paper. This here is a little tip to make your card look more finished. Once you pull it up, just lightly scrape the sides so you get a smooth appearance with the glitter gel on the edges. You also could put down some washi tape or something like that on the edges of the stencil once you've adhered it, so that way it pulls up smoothly on the sides of your paper, if that makes sense. Now I'm just going to come in, there's that black matting that I talked about earlier. I'm going to glue my panel down to that. This is something that Gina K does all the time, is use this really thin black matting around the edges, and I love it. It's such a beautiful look. I don't use it all the time, but I do use it when I think it's going to work well for the card. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down the panel to my card base. I'm using an A2 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 sized card base, top folding. I'm on a top fold card base kick right now. I really like how they look. All right, now I'm coming in, I'm putting some glue on the back of a piece of ephemera that I'm going to glue on there. And this does not work well with the glitter gel. I ultimately go back in and I have to use some foam dots in order to adhere the ephemera to the card base. You'll see that a little bit later here. The glue does not work with the glitter gel. So hot tip, don't do what I did. Use foam squares or double-sided tape or something along those lines. Another tip for you, if you don't play well with the adhesive foam like me, you can cut your adhesive foam strips, these are Doris strips, and then remove the top layer and then adhere your sentiment, whatever you have, to it and peel them up. That keeps it from getting stuck all over your work surface as you're trying to adhere those tiny little strips to the piece of paper. So here I'm coming in real quickly, adding those little adhesive squares behind the piece of ephemera to actually get it to stick, because again, the glue does not work. I was actually really surprised. This is the first time I have had this glue not work. And I think it's because the glitter gel just has this very smooth texture to it once it's actually dry. So once I have that on, I'm going to come in with my little sentiment and I'm just going to adhere that right across the top. I love this card. I think this is my favorite card out of the 3 that I make, but they're all really cute. I like them all. So to add a little bit of color, I'm coming in with the enamel dots, the yellow enamel dots, and in the samplers different people are going to get different colors of the dots and the rhinestones and things like that. So use whatever you have. This would look pretty in any of the other colors as well. I'm just using them on 3 of the flowers. I tend to use 3, 5, or 7 if I'm going to use dots or sequins. That helps draw the eye. Now that's a rule that sometimes I do break, but for the most part, I follow it. And there it is. There's the finished card. Gorgeous. Love that glitter gel. For the third card, I'm going to use another sketch from scrapbookandcards.com. And I ultimately don't use the exact layout of the sketch, but you'll see. Let's go. So I'm cutting this leaf pattern paper down to 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to take the remainder that I cut off and I'm cut that down to a 2-inch strip. Now I'm using up some of my leftovers. I took a piece of that plaid paper and I'm cutting a small little strip of it. And then I did pick out another piece, this pretty like golden piece, and I'm going to use a strip with one side up and then a strip with the other side up, if that makes sense. Then I have picked out this cute little piece of ephemera. Now I am using something that's not included in the sampler, but you could use any large kind of script die that you have. This is the big scripty hugs die, I believe, from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm cutting out 3 of them in white cardstock, and I'm going to layer them up to give the card some dimension. I do also off camera ultimately end up cutting a piece out of glitter cardstock as well. I first cut it out as a shadow, and then ultimately I decided I wanted the word hugs to actually be glittery. So I then took the shadow and cut it out using the hugs word die, if that makes sense. You'll see. Just keep watching. Always a fun time here. And so now I'm using my art glitter glue. I use this with the precision metal tip when I am doing any kind of sentiment word die, because I find it works really well to adhere, and I like that precision metal tip. It works really well. So you just dot down the glue and then you lay your layers together, and then you can kind of work around and pinch them together. Off camera, I did cut out a piece of craft EVA foam so that I can pop this panel up. I usually do this on every card, but the last 2 cards you can see I did not use any EVA foam to pop up panels. Really weird for me. But anyway, so I'm going to pop this one up, the leaves. I just love this piece of pattern paper. It's so pretty. It just has a really nice calming fall vibe to it. So putting that on an A2 card base 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top fold cardigan. And now I'm going to come in and cut my little strips of paper to give them a little banner end. And you do that just by using a pair of scissors. You cut down the middle and then you cut each edge to that middle cut. Now here is a little trick for you. If you are ever trying to line these up on a piece of paper, you can just put down some glue or some dot runner like I do here and line up where you want your little strips to be. Then you can go back and finish gluing them down to the paper. I find this really helpful, especially if you're trying to get them in an even spacing across the back of a piece of paper. So once I get those where I like them, I'm going to come in with some of the Connect glue and glue those down. And then I do cut this strip down to 3 1/2 inches. So that way it is not going down the entire card. And I'm going to do that off camera. And then I'm going to decide how to place everything on my card. So I've got my strip there, and you can see there's that glitter outline die that I mentioned earlier. I do cut that down using the word die so that I can make the word glittery. And the card would have looked nice like this. I just, I overthink things all the time. So ultimately I decided I liked the word on its side like this, and I moved the banner on its side. And then I decided that I wanted the glitter cardstock for the word as well. So I cut that out off camera. I think it just, I don't know, I like the way it looks. So going in, I'm going to glue that off camera, and then I'm going to adhere everything to my card. First, I'm going to put the piece of floral ephemera on the banner, and then I'm going to dot the back of the sentiment die and set that to the side before I adhere it, because I'm going to go ahead and adhere the banner to the card and put the word on last. That way I can decide on placement and see which way I like it. So again, like I said, this card would have looked lovely with the banner going down the center. So you could certainly make this card and do a center banner going down, or you could do what I did and put the banner on its side. Either way, I think it looks really nice. I tend to overthink things, like I said, and so do whatever you think looks the best for you, whatever kind of style of card that you like. And I definitely hope you make this card. I hope you make all of these cards. I love when people get inspired by my work. So please do feel free to make the same card, make a card that's similar, whatever you would like to do based on whatever level in card making you are at. I am by no means an expert. I am going in here and adding one last little pop of color by putting an enamel dot in the center of the flower. So here are all of the finished cards. I love how they came out. Oh, that glitter gel. It's so fun. And you guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so I can bring you some more content. I love creating these videos for you, and I hope to do another one soon. Bye.